2025 Quarter 4 webinar. In this presentation, we will be reviewing the VISI Essentials and Quick Tips. This presentation is approximately 30 minutes long, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat or questionnaire section within the webinar. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. So now, let's meet our team. With over 30 years of experience of combined knowledge of VISI software, we'll start with the senior application engineers. You have Jared Lipinski, which is myself, Nathan Larson, Wesley Town, and then you have our technical support engineers, Casey Noble and Chandler Simmons. Before we get into the presentation, I would like to talk to you about ways to reach our support team. We can be reached by phone at 248-255-4348, by email tst.support.mi@hexagon.com. And you can also reach us via the Hexagon customer portal. This is a great tool for being able to track your support tickets, upload files, manage your licensing, and access the VISI software downloads. In addition to the customer portal, we also offer the Hexagon Nexus portal. This is completely free to sign up and allows you to access the global community forums, as well as the VISI knowledge base systems. I also want to talk about our technical support services that will help you in your VISI experience. These services include installation and implementation services for the new software update. We eliminate the stress of updating to a new version. We will ensure that the transition process is quick and easy for you and your team during the implementation process. We'll review features that are available in the new update and explain in detail how they work. We also offer training for new and existing users in any modules within the VISI software, including design and modeling, mold, electrode, progress die design, simulation, CNC, wire EDM, reverse, flow, and many, many more things. In addition, we also offer customization services such as customizing standard components, tools for machining, and post-processing for CNC and wire EDM machines. For beginners, our e-learning classes are a great way to get to know the VISI software for the essentials. These technical services can be offered via on-site at your facility or on the web using a wide range of platforms, and in a classroom environment at our Hexagon, Michigan location in Novi. If you're interested in our technical support services, please reach out to us or your sales rep. We also want to invite you to our in-person seminar to review the metrology and production software in our Race to Innovate campaign. If you're in the Novi, Michigan, Tempe, Arizona, or Fullerton, California locations and want to see the future of manufacturing in America, please feel free and scan the QR code that's on the screen. Free lunch is provided. And now we're going to go into the agenda for our presentation today. We're going to be reviewing the following: quick tips and selection options, translation and dynamic measuring, workplane creation, layer management and filters, bounding box and align elements. And thank you. We're planning on providing these webinars once a quarter, and we appreciate any feedback on this presentation. This will help us in guiding to future presentations. Now, let's get into our presentation. I will turn this meeting over to Casey. We're going to go over the quick tips for selection.
Thanks for the introduction, Jared. So today I'm just going to be going over some basic VISI functions and different commands. The first command I want to go over today is just block control. So when you're using block control, there's a few things that you may see. There's a couple selection modes for block control down here. This one right here, you can turn on and off block control. See how it's turned on inside the command. If I deselect it, get out of this command and go back into it, it is no longer selected in there. So if I select it again, turn it on, go in the command, you'll see that it's selected now. And there's a couple more features down here that control block control. So if I turn this, there's different environment selection modes. So if I have it in add, this only allows you to add different parts into with what you're selecting. So if you can highlight them and it will not deselect them or add anything else in. And then you also have remove, which removes anything that you have selected. see I cannot add it in. And then toggle has both of them in one, so you can select, and then deselect. You can window it, turn on and off. Another thing down here, number of items currently selected. That just tells you how many items you have selected at the moment, just in case you have one too many than what you want selected. But those are a few things down here that control block control. The next thing I want to go over is called the slow click slider, slow mouse click. So what this allows is, like, for newer users, if you have it turned to fast and you want to click something, if you hold it for like a second, this little window pops up immediately. And what slow mouse click does is allows it a longer time for that click or that little menu to pop up. So I'm left clicking, hold it for a few more seconds. It takes longer for this little menu to pop up. Same thing happens with right click. If I hold right click, that little menu pops up. And I go to fast, hold it, pops up a lot quicker. Same with this. And that's just a nice thing in case you have like hesitant clicks or anything like that. It just allows you a little bit longer time for that menu to pop up. Next thing I'm going to go over is the transparency shading slider. So if you have transparency turned on, each part has predefined shading already selected in it. So if I go into command like change attribute, select this and this, you want to turn the transparency up on certain parts. So I'll go ahead and turn that up for those two. Now you see that these two are solid and these two remain shaded. And what this slider allows you to do is kind of change it. So if you want certain things transparent, certain things solid, you can set them with that and use the slider to control the transparency. That's kind of how the transparency shading slider functions. The next thing I want to go over is just File, Save Part As. So I'll go File, Save Part As. Go ahead and select this and this. Also, if you want this little window to pop up, you have to turn on the options right there. So what this allows, you can save both those parts as one single file, or you can save it by layers. It'll save each part by layer, or you can save each of them by part. So it'll be two different files for each part. Same with the layers. And then you have all these file formats down here that you can use. You can use a regular VISI file, step file, parasolid. And then right here is where you would go to select your directory you want to save it to, or you can copy and paste the directory into that. I think that's all that I kind of want to go today. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Chandler. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chandler. I will be going over a few newer features to the VISI software that I, as well as our team, believe you will find useful as you go about your daily processes. And what we're going to start with is the translation command. So new to the translation command, there is the ability to create a matrix set. While we go about creating a matrix set through the translation command, we're going to also use and go over the dynamic measuring as well as ruler measurement. And the three piece to this is we're going to go over the show number. And so what I mean by we're going to go over the show number is using the query static commands, there is a pound number that will be associated to each value. So like an X distance, Y distance, Z distance, there's going to be an actual pound number that is associated to each of those measurements, and we're going to show you how to utilize those pound number signs or the pound numbers within a command in order to grab that value that it's representing. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to fire up the translation command, as you can see here, and I'm going to go ahead and select our screw. First things first, for the setting up a matrix through the translation command is setting this to multiple copy. Next, I'm going to go ahead and turn this matrix parameter on. And as you can see here, we got some preset values in here. This is just from previous. We'll just zero everything out, start from scratch. As you can see up top here, we got total length, spacing. I'm going to keep this on total length. I'm good on the number of copies we have for each of these. I'm going to get into the distances. So as you can see over here to the left-hand side, we have these filters that I have already kind of started talking about, which these are the dynamic measuring filters. All right. If we come here to our workspace and actually hover over our arrows, you can see that we get these little tag boxes. And then within the tag box, you can either enter in the value manually or you can come over here to measurement menu. I want you to go ahead and utilize the measurement menu in order to use these options here. And for this first distance, what I'm going to use is distance between 2 points. That's what I'm going to use for this first distance. And I'm going to reference this piece of geometry that I have up here because I want to take this, I want this to be the value we're moving the screw over. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go point to point, and that will automatically associate that value to my first distance. I'm going to go to the second distance. For my second distance, this time I'm going to use a ruler dimension. Okay? Using the ruler dimension, I'm going to go ahead and reference this piece of geometry that I have over on the left-hand side. So I'm going to select the top of this piece of wireframe and the bottom of this piece of wireframe so that it places that value in accordingly for my second distance. All right? So that's how you would go about using the the dynamic measuring and ruler measurement filters or tools. All right, I'll go ahead and confirm that. And so what I want to go over lastly is the show number. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to first off get into the translation command. I'm going to just switch this to copy. We don't want to do anything with the matrix right now. I just want to utilize the copy translation, and what I'm going to do is come in here to my question mark drop down, and I'm going to go to the query static commands, just the query command drop over, and I'm going to utilize this query distance point to point option. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize this piece of wireframe geometry up top here because this is the distance that I want to move my piece in X. So knowing that I want to move this in X, I will go to the point-to-point distance in X, and I see that it's 25 inches. Instead of entering 25 inches to my X, I can enter in this pound number value, or this pound number. So I can do pound 2, and the system will know to actually move my part 25 inches because of this pound 2 that is associated to the point-to-point distance. So let's say I hit OK. I come up here to my x-axis box and I can enter in pound 2. When I hit enter, it automatically knows to move it in X 25 inches. I go ahead and confirm that's what I want. And it's exactly how I instructed it. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Wesley. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chandler, for the great info. My name is Wesley. I'll be going through some of the changes to the Workplanes over the past few versions. So the first thing that I want to go over would be the datum down here in the bottom left corner. If you right click on this, this will give you a couple different options to be able to manipulate your workplane. So there's an option to reverse Z, transform workplane, create workplane, and your workplane manager. From here, you can access all these different commands. For instance, I have a reverse Z. So if I look at my datum right here, and I choose the option to reverse the Z, I can see that it'll just reverse it. Inside of here, I can access the Workplane Manager. And from here, I can access the Create Workplane and Transform Workplane down here. Another great inclusion that they have added into the past few versions is the click and drag for the automatic workplane creation. So if I left click and hold on the sphere of this datum, I can click and hold and drag this to a new location. From here, I can use a bunch of different options. I can manually input rotation values. I can manually translate the axis in different directions. Or I can just click and hold on the different arrows or the rotational bars. And you can always reposition your work plane by just clicking and holding on the sphere. A new change to the creation of a work plane. Let's just open up our work plane manager here. I'm going to go to create work plane. If you're using the 3-point method of work plane creation, it'll actually now show you a visual representation of how that work plane is going to be created. If I were to click on a point from my origin, as I move my cursor around, you can see that my datum is updating to where the x-axis is going to be pointing. So if I click my x and then I can click my y, if I choose different areas, you can see my datum is now updating for those different areas. So I'll click that point there. This will help give newer users a better reference to where the actual work plane is going to be created and how it's going to be created and in which direction those axes will be pointing. If we look under the window dropdown, under the view section, there's an option to view normal to face. This will actually create a view based on the normal of a face that you're selecting. So say I select this angled face. Now my view will be set to that angle. If I select this face right here, that will change my view. This is great for getting different angles on views instead of trying to rotate and move things around to get the perfect view. You can just simply select a face that you want to have the view set on. Let's go ahead and have our absolute work plane activated. As you can see, the work plane, XY plane, is down towards the bottom of the part. Let's say that I want to create a wireframe outline of an area and have it automatically project to my XY plane. So if I go to wireframe, and let's just go with sketch lines. If you're utilizing the point filter, this option should be available for most commands. And it is the option to project onto work plane right here. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that. And I'm going to select a few different points and watch it as it projects it automatically to our work plane. So let's select here, here, this corner, to this corner. As you can see, as I'm building this line, it is automatically projecting it down to the work plane. Now, our line should be flat to our XY plane. This option can come in handy when you're trying to build profile boundaries for machining or many other different applications. But these are some of the newer changes that have been made to the work planes and the views in the last couple versions. Thank you.
In this video, we are going to talk about Layer Manager. What is Layer Manager? Layer Manager in other softwares known as a tree would be a way of managing a layer structure. This is a way of basically taking entities and moving them from one area to another and allowing you to easily filter through your different parts of a mold or a die. So first we're going to go through creating a layer. Basically you go to a blank layer, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, and type in the layer name. You can move items onto that layer or copy those items, retaining them on the original layer that they were once at. So as you can see, we moved this item from one layer to another. So from here, we're going to change that layer index. It's very easy to change layer index to something that is available. If you do move it to something that's already existent, it will allow you to merge or cancel the movement. And within a layer group structure, this is a way of subdividing up multiple layers into one group. For example, in this file, we have a core and a cavity or a cover ejector. So as you can see, it subdivides up the entire structure of that side of the mold. You've got ejector pins, you've got water lines, and you even got the press. So we've subdivided up all the layers that represent each one of these line items here. So I'm going to turn on a select group of layers. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and insert some empty layers into this. We can insert an empty layer or multiple layers. Basically what this allows us to do is if I, let's say, need a spacing between certain layers to add layers into an organized structure, I can insert an empty structure in between. Then from here, we're going to go into assigning colors. You can assign colors to individual layers or assign colors to the specific group itself. So I'll assign colors to the cover and the ejector sides of this mold. So if I go to the color selection here, I can choose a color, and all the layers of that group will actually be represented as that color. Same thing for the ejector side. I can edit that group and change the colors. When I'm creating the group, you can also set the color structures as well. So this is just another form of sorting through your data. Sort by the color if you choose to. So one additional thing that we can do with this is we can assign that color body to each layer group. So if we select certain items, those items are going to be the color of that layer assignment that you set. So you can assign the colors through that. And we can also customize columns. So you can reorganize and restructure the columns for your entities. Let's just say I don't want color to be turned on. I can filter that off. This is just a simple right click of the icon bar here at the top, and I can filter that back on and change the order of where something's at. So when I move color down one, I can move it down. So this column area is fully customizable now. I can undo multiple and redo multiple layer structure setups. So if I activated certain layers, activated certain items, I can activate those all and go back and forward. And now we can also filter by group. If I select the specific group, it's going to only filter so I can visibly only see the layers associated to that group. From there, I can search and replace. So I'm going to search and replace. You see in the value that we were searching for, let's just say in this case Z, it hides everything that has that letter in it. So I can also do another search and replace, and this time replace that Z with nothing. And what it's going to basically do is it's going to clear that Z out, and it's going to customize and replace that with what we've input in. We can also add a layer comment to each individual layer. So basically, this is just more of an internal note that adds additional information to the layer that you are trying to create. And I'll talk about active layers. Active layers represents that there's data in this layer. These layer checkboxes show up as green if everything is visible. But if we're using our attributes and visibility eyeballs, the checkboxes will all of a sudden turn red. So now you can see the green checkboxes mean everything is visible. Red checkboxes mean there's data there, but some of it might not be visible. So now I'm going to turn things over to Nathan.
Thank you, Jared. That was some good information on the layer manager. Hello, my name is Nathan, as Jared introduced, and I'm going to be going over 3 different commands in VISI that have been updated in the recent versions. The 3 commands I'm going to be going over is line elements, bounding box, and blend with curve. So to start off, I'm going to be going through the line elements update. So we can see here, if we go to edit dropdown, other transformations, align elements, we have a command that's been there for quite a while. In the past, you would pick the parts you want to move, you'd pick a point, and then you pick a face. What's changed is, well, all that old functionality still exists. What's new is now we can pick 3 different points instead of a face, and then align to the new position by 3 points. So I'll walk you guys through that here right now. So the first step here is we want to pick our solid. It doesn't have to be a solid. As we can see in the filters, we can pick surfaces, mesh, lines, profiles, basically anything but a point cloud. So once you've selected the entity or entities you want to move, the next selection is pick your first point. Once you pick your first point, it's going to ask you for a face if this is the first time you've run the command in this session. And then this is where the enhancement came in. So now instead of picking a face, I can come over here on my left and pick a point, or change my filter to the point filter. Once I'm on P for points, I can then come over here and just continue picking points. I can pick my second point and then my third point. And then I go to my new position, select my first point, second point, and third point. And then after you've done that, if you want to make sure you've done everything correctly, you can just do a quick solids interference and just make sure there's no interference between the 2 solids. So I have a bunch of contact faces, but no actual red for interference. So the next command I want to go over is going to be the bounding box. So let's switch that up. So bounding box has seen quite a few updates over the last few versions. Some of them, as going farther back, is that we're now on one page versus having multiple tabs. So this makes it easier to see the box dimensions of a part you select. And also, now one of the changes, you can switch between millimeters and inches inside this box. Once you have that, if you scroll down farther, normally the scrolling has to do if you have big icons turned on. If you have the standard icons, it should all fit on the screen, but it's based off your monitor size and how big your icons are. Down here, there's a checkbox here that we can turn on called Create Workplane. This means that I can pick one of these points on the part and create a workplane there automatically aligned to this part. Even more than that, we have buttons down here if we want to rotate it. So if you didn't want to have it in this position, you want to flip it 180, you could hit that twice, and then your new workplane will be aligned so that way X is this direction and then Y is at you. So it makes it real easy to just flip, mirror, make that workplane active after you're done. You also can change it to different styles to show what points are available. Depending on if you just want to get the bottom of workplane at the bottom, standard, or all. So there's been a few changes. You also have like the non-uniform box. So if you actually want to make a bounding box, you can either change this value down here, and that'll tell you what that difference is up here, so it'll add that difference. If you wanted to only add it to like just the Z top, you didn't want to add it to the top and bottom, you can turn that on, and then now changes will only add it to the top. This can be useful if you wanted to make a stock model for a part. Alright, so enough of that. Let's go over the final part here. So let's find our part. Alright, so blend with curve, they added a few changes. So if we go to edit, modify, and go to wireframe, other curves, blend with curve. So wireframe drop down, other curves, blend with curve. The change they made is you no longer pick points when you're selecting your lines. So you pick your first line, and then you pick your second line, or edge if you want to pick edges. So one of the new changes they did is it automatically picks the endpoint of the edge or line you picked. And then if you want to move that endpoint, it will automatically trim back that line. So if I grab this sphere and drag it to this corner, you can see it automatically trimmed away that line as I dragged it back. Then I confirm, I now have a tangent line between those two lines. So it was a real simple change they made that really speeds up the command. But I know a few people have been having problems with it because they've been still trying to pick points and not understanding what's happening with the change. So I just wanted to explain that in a little bit more detail for you guys. And now I'm going to pass it over to the group for the Q&A section. All right. So we have a few questions that were posted to us. I'll go read through them and read through the answers. But one thing I did want to get your guys' opinions on is what do you guys want to see for our next webinar we do? We're planning one for next quarter, so we do want to make sure that we're making a webinar that's relevant to what you guys want to see. So if you guys either put it in the chat or put it in the question section on what you guys want to see for future webinars, that'd be perfect. But I'll start reading off the first question we have. What is the difference between the ruler and doing the point-to-point measure from the dynamic measure menu? They give the same result, don't they? So this looks like it's pointing back to when we were going over the dynamic measuring and the difference between using the little icon on the drag arrow to do the measure point-to-point versus using the dynamic point-to-point on the left-hand side of the screen. The main difference is that the dynamic measure icons on the left-hand side of the screen, those are all only available when you're inside a menu. So commands that have a menu that you have to confirm, that's when you have those options for dynamic measure. But the new measure icon that appears when you hover over a drag arrow, those are available whenever you have one of those drag arrows and apply the value that you measured directly to that arrow. So that way, it's not like you measure it and then have to make sure you click in the right box. All right.
So I was gonna say I could take the next one. Just
All right.
it
Thanks,
looks
Chandler.
like it's coming from the same dynamic measurement, area, if you will. And the question was, does it work with angles too? And so yes, there is a angle filter, if you will. It's called angle of two elements that you can utilize. Filter tool, however you want to look at it. But nonetheless, yes, to answer your question, yes, it's angle of two elements that you can utilize for that one.
All right, so after that, have there been any improvements to layer management in the SDK? In the 2023.1 version of the SDK, you can't reindex them like you can by right-clicking the layer manager of the interface, as you showed a moment ago. Not that I'm aware of for any changes in the SDK for the last couple versions, but like I sent earlier, I'll take a look after this webinar and I'll send you an email for what I found if there is anything. All right, it looks like there's a couple new questions. We also have the sketch curve question. So let me just get the line elements. All right, so share screen.
Nathan, do you want me to make you the presenter?
Yeah, if you could make me the presenter. curve.
Absolutely. There you go.
Oh. All right. Everyone seen the Align Elements controller box? I guess you guys can't really respond.
Yep, I can see it.
Yep,
Right.
we can see it.
So in the question, you want to see the sketch curve command. So this is what's sort of new is they now have this box here. So as you're picking your points, right click to finish selecting, you then have an option now to edit the points you selected and then change some of the options in here. If you expand these options for like a closed one, if you want to make it a closed loop without having to actually try and pick that same endpoint, which is sort of difficult. But once you so when the main thing is when you're picking those points, so you pick your points. So after you pick, you have to right click once to finish picking points. And then you have to also right click confirm to confirm the command. One other thing I'll point out though, in other curves, they also have a new, where is it? Create curves on face command. So in the case of picking, like I'm picking points and I want to make sure it's projecting onto this face, all the points I pick will be projected onto that face without me having to make sure that I don't have to make sure I'm picking a point on the exact face. It'll automatically project those lines onto the face you're doing. So that's another new curve for creating curves. I believe there's one more curve, another curves that was made.
Was it create middle curve, I think?
Oh yeah, let's create middle curve, which will just create a curve between two different curves you created. One nice thing about the middle curve one is it does work with 3D. I know I just drew both these flat, but it will also project, no, maybe I do have to project it in the Y. I'm doing 3D fillet, that's the wrong command, that's why it wasn't working. Create middle curve. I was like, there you go. I was like, it should be super easy. You just pick two curves and just puts it. But the nice thing is it does work with 3D elements, not just flat elements. All right. Any other command? How do you make toolbar fixed to the left side of the screen? All right, I'm really happy you asked about this one because this one is a question we get on support a lot. So a lot of times when you first install VISI, I have to figure out where my icon bar even is because this way I turn off immediately. Oh, here it is. So you have this icon bar and the problem is it's not docked to the side over there. So if you come up here to this little black drop down arrow, if you click that, you can click this button that says show hide icon bar. The easiest way to find is it's the one that's turned off. If you click it, it'll go back to the old style with it being docked on the side. So that was a really good question because we get that one a lot. Any plans to cover the new toolpaths in version 25? So that definitely is an option we have for the next webinars to focus more on the changes to the machining side of things. That's not a bad option to go over. So we'll definitely put that on the options list for what we can go over next quarter for the next webinar. Is there an easy button to dissolve solid groups? So if you have solid groups manager, especially if say you imported in a step file and that's why you have your solid groups. The easiest way to dissolve these is go to Modeling, Solid Groups Manager, right-click, and dissolve. In 2025, though, in System Options, there is now an option here for single part document as solid group. So this defaults as off. So you don't have to worry about turning it off. If you go to 2025.2, when you import in a step file, it'll automatically be off. So automatically import in a step file as separate elements. You don't have to come in here and turn that off. You don't have to dissolve it if you move to 25.2. But the only real way to dissolve a solid groups is by going to the Modeling Solid Groups Manager and then right click on the group and dissolving it. So when I right click, nothing happens. It just wants me to keep selecting points. Wireframe, sketch curve, that circle, sketch curve. Just opening 2024 to make sure it's not a 25 to 24 thing. Wireframe, sketch curve. Okay, keeps wanting me to select points, so I right click or hit the checkbox to okay it. Okay, so that's fine. All right, so in 25, if I keep picking points, if I right click, it should go to this point where here, and then I can just hit the checkbox or pick more points, right click. There.
I've seen, I've seen it where it was having issues with the right clicking to confirming it. If you hit that green check mark, it usually will fix that problem.
Okay, thank you, Wesley.
Yep. Also, this functionality where it pulls up this dialog box is brand new in 2025.
Can you add a group in toolpaths without dissolving first? All right. I'll come right back to this one in a second, Dave. I'm going to jump to the next one down, how to use mixed rendering. The file I have on my screen is a little bit easier for using the mixed render. So the mixed render is a part that Casey actually talked about earlier for the dynamic sliders. So you have these sliders that you can use for transparency that controls when you're 100% transparency. It's probably not 100. So when you're at 100% transparency, you can control that slider to control what level transparency it's at. There's also a slider for mixed render. So when you apply mixed render, there's a slider now that controls how wireframe or how tangent the other elements are besides the element you picked. So that's a change to the mixed render command with those slider bars. If you go into your graphics area icons layout, you may need to make sure you have the mixed render transparency slider enabled. This icon area for the top or side is the only area you can actually access these slider bars. So you do need to make sure you have at least one icon for accessing these two icons or these two slider bars if you want to actually use those features. But especially with the transparency one, because it almost affects most transparency, really important that you have those available to you. So once you enable the mixed render, you can hit that button, the stoplight, just like with the eyeballs. So the command is called mixed render enable. It'll turn it on and off. But if you've selected one element, it's easiest to just turn it off and reselect an element to reset it. And just use that first icon versus the last icon is subtract additional for the mixed render. All right. I probably need some holes. Would one of you be able to get a file set up for Dave Martin's question, or jump in and just answer it? If you can add a group to toolpaths without dissolving first.
Yeah, so I was taking a look at that. So when you're adding in, say you want to add in, more than one piece of geometry to a group, there's two different ways that you can do it. It does have to be considered a piece model. So if you want to add it into one group, so say it's like a cutoff surface or a patch surface, you'll go to your model manager side, right click on the model, and then go to properties. And then in the properties, there is a option to add geometry. And you can just click that add geometry and then be able to add that surface into that model. And then all you have to do is just rebuild that toolpath. The other option, if you have two separate piece models, then when you go to select geometry in 2025.2, it'll have you just pick which piece model you want to use. If you hold control and select both of them, it'll automatically try to unite it. It'll open up the window to unite them and then put them as one single group. If you can have me set as a presenter, I can show you real quick.
Nathan, you'll have to do that.
All right. Let's see. Make presenter.
Okay. All right. Can you guys see my screen at all? Here, share
Not
the
yet.
screen.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Do you see VISI with just a blank session?
No, just your desktop.
Okay. What about now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me move this over real quick. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to make 2 blocks. All right. Go to my cam navigator. So I'm going to add this as a piece model. We'll call this piece 1. That's fine. Just going to add an operation to this. Add an operation. Okay. So I have my operation right here. Let me go ahead and just build it. Okay. So say I want to include this model right here into it. There's 2 different ways to do it. The first way is going into my geometry tab, right click on this piece, and then go to properties. And then through here, I can go to add geometry. And then I select the geometry that I want to add into it and then hit OK. So now it's going to be included with the piece model. From there, you just have to right click on it and then build it. And then the other option, so I'm going to add in an additional piece. And then I'm going to add this as a separate piece model. We'll call this 2. So now I have this additional piece model that I want to add in to this operation. So if you right click on this operation, go to properties. If you go to the select pieces, you can highlight both of these, which is both piece models, and then hit OK. this will prompt you to create a group. So now you got these two piece models fused into one group, which is going to make a singular piece model. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then I can go ahead and build from there. So those are the two different ways that you can add in additional geometry. Hope this kind of answers your question. But let me go ahead and swap this back over to Nathan. Let me go. These. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop sharing my screen. Okay. Jared, are you able to? Here,
You have to do it. There should be an option
yeah.
for you to be able to switch
Okay.
people and just pick Nathan.
Yep, there we go. All right, are you able to see that, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, though.
If it doesn't, we can always get on a call with you individually later and just go over it in more detail. All right. Why would VISI now allow me to save a particular mesh as a step file? Is there a way to validate a mesh? The main reason is a mesh file is not a solid or surface file. So normally when you try to save a mesh file as a step file, it's trying to save all the triangles as individual surfaces. If you're trying to export out a mesh, you're better off exporting out as an STL model. Solid mesh. So when you want to export this out, yeah, you can just turn that off, which we went over earlier. STL is what you would want to select if you want to export out a mesh file. Whereas like a step file is made for surfaces and solids. So if I try to save this out as a step file, my file should be empty or not even possible. So, but if you save it as a STL, you should be fine for exporting out the data. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you meant STL, not step. I know in the reverse dropdown, there's a few different commands for just doing like mesh cleanup in case there's something invalid on the mesh itself. You could try doing. But this is about the closest command to a validate bodies command that we have for solids. Would be the mesh cleanup in the reverse dropdown.
I was going to say another suggestion I would make, Nathan, possibly is under the modeling dropdown. There's the topological mesh. You could try to do that. That kind of mimics the mesh as if it were a solid. I mean, it's not always guaranteed, but something you could try.
If in this case, if it's not saving out, we can definitely give you a call after this and just work on your specific file that you're having problems exporting out and try and figure out why that's not exporting. But for a general sense, if you're trying to validate a mesh cleanup would be the closest that mesh has versus solids. All right, let me just write down Michael's name so I can make sure we get him after this. All right. When I use solid interference command, sometimes it shows result in wireframe, and sometimes it gives result as green surface. What settings can I do? What settings I can do UC in surfaces, not wireframe? So in a few different commands, if you go to translate, you try and translate something, you hit W, which is one of the hotkeys down here. You can switch it so that way, like the preview body is wireframe. Sometimes that can be an issue for why you're not getting a good match for the parts aligning. But if you have the parts aligned, and you have your parts aligned, you go to analysis, body interference, solids interference. The green normally means contact faces. Your filters do work on the left here, so if you switch it to transparent shading or wireframe, you can affect, like, those filters will affect the visuals on screen. But green should be just the contact ones, and red should be the intersections. So if you use that display filter, you can help reduce the visual clutter by only showing just the intersections or only the contacts. Also have it on display on all, whereas I think if you change what you're trying to display in some of these options, you may have instances where it's trying to hide or zoom up on those areas. Like you have an anti-zoom, so if you're trying to do something like that, I think that might be what's causing the specific issues. All right. Questions. I know we're about to hit that hour limit here. So if we haven't answered your question yet, we'll be reaching out to you and just making sure that whether what I explained already answered it, or if you need more assistance beyond that, or if we just didn't get a chance to go over your question, we'll go over it then with you. But thank you all for joining us today. This was the first one in a series of webinars we're planning, and we'll take a lot of the feedback you gave on what you guys want to see for future ones for planning out our next one, which should be next quarter. So thank you for attending. And I'm all set on my end unless anyone else wants to say anything.
I'm good. Other than just thank you, like what you said, thank you guys for attending. It's always good to hear feedback from everyone.